Hello everybody, I'm Chad, and this is the third iLogic tutorial that I'm doing for Catomatic.com. In the previous tutorial we started a bookcase, and in this tutorial we're going to assemble that bookcase and create some more iLogic rules. So the first thing I want to do is I want to bring in my side pieces. So I'm going to bring in my sides. It's my first side and my second side. Now on this bookcase we wanted the origin planes to be basically from the back side of the bookcase and then centered on the bookcase, and I guess the bottom plane is on the bottom of the bookcase. We've got a plane on the very bottom of the bookcase, the back of the bookcase, and then centered left to right. So the first object always comes in grounded, so you want to unground that, and then we're going to start by creating some constraints. So the first constraint we're going to add is our constraint that's going to push side 1 out to the desired location. And I'm going to rotate so that I can make sure I want that plane to be on the outside edge, so I'm going to make that a flush, and I am going to say it's got to be negative. Negative. I know because I've done this enough. I know which way to go with that. Case width divided by 2 brings us out to the outer edge, the left side of the bookcase, and now I'm going to apply that, and now we're going to find the bottom and the bottom. Apply that, and then we'll find the back side and the back side. Now we can apply the other side. So we got that, and we're going to go to side 2. And we're going to want to go mate, and bottom and the bottom. Apply, and our back and our back. Now this is going to be case depth, and we get that. I'm going to edit there. Now, because I had to flip the part around on this side, I had to. One of my constraints was going to have to be away from the other plane, so that was the depth there. I just used my case depth parameter to get it located in the right place. So now we have our two sides in. Now I'm going to bring in the top. Open the top up. Now we should be able to constrain that as well. So we'll constrain this, and there should be an origin plane right in the center, which there is, so we'll put that there. We now have a bottom, and there's also going to be that there. Now the plane is the opposite way, so I'm going to put flush so that we get the plane, because I want this plane of this top piece to be the very top of the piece up there. So this is going to be case height. Alright, we're going to apply that. And then we've got the back side as well. Now, all the smart people out there are going to say, hey, those pieces are cutting into each other. So that's something we're going to want to fix. And this is going to be case depth. And I always picked the wrong one. I just let it go, and then I figure out which one I'm going to do. You can see that our side pieces actually need to be a little bit shorter than they are. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our side pieces, and we can, just like we did with the base piece and everything else, we're going to add a rule. We're going to call it dims, and our side piece, we're going to go to our user parameters, and our case height is 48, which is true. So before I get going into there, I'm going to create a parameter, and I'm going to call the parameter side height. And go back to my dims rule, recreate my dims rule, and always going to go to user parameter, double click on side height, and I'm going to say side height equals case height, double click on that, minus and a board thickness. And that's all I have to do. And I'll update, and that's going to drop my height down. I will save, I will go back to my assembly, And from here, it didn't do a thing, did it? Cool. Why didn't it do anything? Oh, I know why it didn't do anything, obviously. We have to go to our sketch, and we have to change that parameter from case height to side height. Okay, so now we're going to hit save. Now when we come back, we'll see that our part is the right height, and our top goes across the top, just like it's supposed to. Alright. I'm going to pause for a second, and I'm going to bring the other parts in, and we're going to move on from there. Okay, I'm back, and I have one more constraint that I want to add. We got this shelf, and as you can see, there's a base. That base piece runs through here, which has a height. And I have that plane, the constraining plane is on the top of this, so if I constrain it to the base height, obviously I'm going to get right there at the end of the height, so I need to go to the base height plus that thickness. So I'm going to hit constrain, and I'm just going to go down and find my bottom constraint there. I'm down to my base shelf, and I'm finding my constraining plane that I want to use. And we're going to use the flush constraint, and I'm going to say base height, and plus, and I had that constraint for the case wall thickness. That brings it up. Apply, and so you can see that I've got my bookcase basically built. I have to pattern that. I have a couple calculations I have to make, and then we can pattern that. So we're going to go and we're going to create another DIMS rule, because that's what I call them all. You can call them whatever you want. I'm going to click on user parameters, and I'm going to say we have to calculate that available shelf height. So I'm going to double click on available shelf height, and I'm going to say that available shelf height equals case height. I'm going to double click on case height, and minus base height, oops, minus one of the case wall thicknesses. The shelf height, available shelf height that I'm imagining is the top of the bottom shelf to the top of the very top of the bookcase, because you can still use the top of the bookcase for a shelf. So that gives me an even, distance that I want that to be. So now I've calculated that. So what I want to do is I want to also calculate the shelf spacing. So I double click on that, on shelf spacing, I hit equals, and now I'm going to say my available shelf height there, and I'm just going to divide that by my shelf quantity, and that will give me my spacing. So now I hit OK, and I'm going to pattern this. I'm going to click on the shelf, I'm going to click on column, and I'm going to grab, I like to grab the axes out of here, so I'm going to grab my y-axis, and on quantity I'm just going to say shelf quantity, because I've made a parameter for that. Shelf quantity is there, and now I've got shelf spacing. Okay. Now, do I need to do a -1? Nope. I get confused sometimes, but there's my quantity, 3. So I got 3 shelves. There's my, there are all of my bookcases. We've got the whole bookcase assembled. We've got 3 shelves in there. We've got all of our parts, and that will do it for this tutorial. Now the next tutorial, we're going to write some rules and get into a little bit more in-depth iLogic stuff, where we're trying to push parameters down to those parts. And so I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.